Al Capone ruled Chicago's criminal underworld for nearly a decade. He made millions from bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution. In 1931, the government convicted him not for murder, but taxes. Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. He served time in Alcatraz, the most feared prison in America. By the time he was released in 1939, he was broken. Syphilis had been quietly destroying his brain for years. By the mid-1940s, his mental capacity had deteriorated severely. The man who once commanded an empire could barely function. On January 25, 1947, Capone suffered a stroke at his Florida estate. Cardiac arrest followed within days at his Palm Beach mansion. Al Capone died surrounded by family on January 25, 1947. He was 48 years old. His mind had already left him years before. The most feared gangster in American history died in his bed, not from a bullet, but from a disease he never treated. Lucky Luciano built the modern American mafia from scratch. He created the Commission, the governing body of organized crime. In 1936, prosecutor Thomas Dewey convicted him on prostitution charges. Luciano was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. During World War II, the government secretly used his mob connections. In exchange, his sentence was commuted and he was deported to Italy. Luciano spent his final years in Naples plotting a return to power. He cooperated with filmmakers producing a movie about his life. On January 26, 1962, Luciano arrived at Naples airport for a meeting. He collapsed on the tarmac from a massive heart attack. Paramedics arrived but could not revive him. Lucky Luciano died at the airport, age 64. American authorities had just discovered he was planning to return to the U.S. The man who invented modern organized crime died alone on an airport tarmac. Italy gave him a large funeral. America celebrated his death. John Gotti was the most flamboyant mob boss in American history. He took over the Gambino crime family by having Paul Castellano murdered. The media called him the Teflon Don because nothing stuck to him. He beat 3 federal indictments using jury tampering and intimidation. In 1992, the FBI finally got him through his own underboss, Sammy Gravano. Gravano agreed to testify against Gotti in exchange for a reduced sentence. Gotti was convicted of murder and racketeering and sentenced to life. He arrived at the United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois. Gotti spent his final years in near-total isolation in a small cell. He was diagnosed with head and neck cancer while in prison. Gotti refused to cooperate with investigators, even as his health failed. On June 10, 2002, John Gotti died of cancer in prison. He was 61 years old. He never once expressed remorse. The Teflon Don who outsmarted the FBI 3 times died quietly in a cell. Cancer did what prosecutors couldn't. Meyer Lansky was the financial genius behind the American Mafia. He helped build the casino empire in Las Vegas and Cuba. Lansky laundered hundreds of millions through offshore bank accounts. The FBI called him the mob's accountant and hunted him for decades. In 1970, facing indictment, Lansky fled to Israel seeking citizenship. Israel refused to grant him citizenship and deported him back to America. Back in the United States, Lansky faced multiple criminal charges. Remarkably, he beat every single charge through legal maneuvering. By the 1980s, Lansky was old, frail, and financially diminished. Despite laundering hundreds of millions, he died with relatively little money. On January 15, 1983, Meyer Lansky died of lung cancer in Miami. He was 80 years old. The man who handled billions for the mob died nearly broke. The FBI never succeeded in sending him to prison for a single day. The most sophisticated criminal financier in history died of a cigarette. Bugsy Siegel was the mobster who built Las Vegas from the desert. He poured millions of mob money into the Flamingo Hotel. The hotel lost money, and Siegel was suspected of skimming construction funds. His partners in the East Coast mob grew impatient and suspicious. A contract was quietly approved on his life without his knowledge. On June 20, 1947, Siegel was sitting in his girlfriend's Beverly Hills home. He was reading the Los Angeles Times, relaxed and unsuspecting. A gunman positioned himself outside the window with a military rifle. 9 shots were fired through the window at close range. Multiple bullets struck Siegel in the head and body. 1 bullet hit him directly in the bridge of his nose. The force blew his left eye completely out of its socket. The eyeball was found intact on the floor 15 feet away. Bugsy Siegel died instantly on the sofa, newspaper still in hand. Within minutes of his death, mobsters had already taken over the Flamingo. Pablo Escobar was the wealthiest and most violent drug lord in history. At his peak, he supplied 80% of the world's cocaine. He offered Colombian officials a simple choice: silver or lead. Accept a bribe or receive a bullet. Most chose the bribe. After escaping his luxurious private prison in 1992, he became a fugitive. Colombian police tracked him through radio signals from his phone calls. On December 2, 1993, police surrounded his hideout in Medellin. Escobar and his bodyguard attempted to flee across rooftops barefoot. Both men were hit during the rooftop chase and fell. Pablo Escobar died on that rooftop from gunshot wounds. The official report said he was shot during the firefight. His family always claimed he took his own life with a final shot. Officers photographed his body, smiling and posing like hunters with prey. The image spread worldwide within hours. The most wanted man in the world was caught by his own voice. Whitey Bulger ran the Irish mob in Boston for 3 decades. He was also secretly an FBI informant, protected by corrupt agents. When his cover was blown in 1995, Bulger fled and disappeared. He spent 16 years on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. In 2011, he was found living quietly in Santa Monica, California. A neighbor recognized him after the FBI posted new advertisements. Bulger was arrested without resistance at age 81. He was convicted of 11 murders and sentenced to life in prison. In October 2018, Bulger was transferred to a new federal prison. He arrived at USP Hazleton in West Virginia in a wheelchair. Less than 12 hours after arriving, Bulger was found dead in his cell. 3 inmates had beaten him to death with a padlock and a sock. They attempted to gouge out his eyes and cut out his tongue. Traditional mob punishment for informants. Whitey Bulger, the most feared Irish gangster in America, was beaten to death at 89. Griselda Blanco was known as the godmother of cocaine in Miami. She ordered hundreds of murders during Miami's cocaine wars in the 1970s. Blanco pioneered motorcycle assassination squads used across the city. She was eventually arrested and convicted of 3 murders in 1985. After serving 20 years, she was deported to Colombia in 2004. Back in Colombia, she lived quietly in Medellin, largely forgotten. On September 3, 2012, Blanco stopped at a butcher shop in Medellin. A motorcycle pulled up outside. A rider entered and shot her once. Griselda Blanco died on the butcher shop floor aged 69. She was killed by the same type of assassination she had pioneered herself. The godmother of cocaine was killed by her own invention. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán built the Sinaloa cartel into the world's most powerful drug organization. He escaped from maximum security Mexican prisons twice, once in a laundry cart. The second time, he escaped through a mile-long tunnel dug under his cell. American and Mexican authorities hunted him for years across mountain ranges. In 2016, actor Sean Penn secretly met him for a Rolling Stone interview. That interview helped authorities triangulate his location in the mountains. Mexican Marines captured El Chapo in January 2016 in Los Mochis. He was extradited to the United States in 2017. A New York jury convicted him of drug trafficking and murder conspiracy. El Chapo was sentenced to life plus 30 years in July 2019. He is currently held at ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure prison in America. His cell has no windows. He has no contact with other prisoners. The man who escaped 2 maximum security prisons now sits in a box. A celebrity interview helped end the most wanted drug lord's freedom. El Chapo is still alive, buried alive in a concrete cell. Semyon Mogilevich is considered the most dangerous gangster alive today. He runs a criminal empire spanning Eastern Europe, Russia, and beyond. Mogilevich controls arms trafficking, drug smuggling, and nuclear material smuggling. The FBI placed him on their 10 most wanted list in 2009. He has been linked to money laundering operations worth billions. Unlike most gangsters, Mogilevich operates entirely through legitimate businesses. He has never been convicted of any major crime anywhere in the world. Russia has repeatedly refused to extradite him to face charges. He lives openly in Moscow under the protection of the Kremlin. Western intelligence agencies consider him virtually untouchable. Interpol has issued a red notice for his arrest. Every country he enters outside Russia risks a diplomatic incident. He is 78 years old and has outlived every rival who ever challenged him. The FBI considers his case one of their greatest unsolved frustrations. The world's most dangerous gangster has never spent a day in a Western prison. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones. Feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.